What's up? I'm Jacob Litzo, your Elixir mentor. We are continuing to build out the Gist LiveView. In the last video, we got our navigation and passing parameters working. And in this video, we will get syntax highlighting working on our gists using Highlight.js. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's open up our project. The very first thing we're going to have to do, let's just expand assets, and we can expand the JS directory and the app.js. We need to use Highlight.js, and that is a JavaScript library. So we have to use npm to install it. We want all of our JS stuff to always be saved in this assets directory. So let's go ahead and open up our terminal, cd into our project. Mine's in documents, develop, Elixir mentor, and then Elixir gist. And what you want to do here is, first of all, make sure you have npm installed. If you don't, you're going to have to go do that. You can find lots of videos online how to do that. So I'm going to do npm install, and then we just do highlight.js, and then do a -- prefix space assets. And what that will do is make sure it saves our node modules in the assets directory. And now I hit enter. It downloads it, and you'll notice that node modules popped up, and we got a package JSON and a package lock file. So there we go. And there's our JavaScript dependency. All right. And so that's installed. And now if we open up our app.js, to be able to use it, we have to import it. And I'm going to say import. And we're going to just call this HLJS for short, so it's easier to call from our code. And then you just say from, and then inside double quotations, say highlight.js. And now that is imported, and we have access to this library. Now, what we're going to do to be able to use this is we need to, we need to add Highlight.js's style sheet to our root.html.hex file. And then we're going to create a highlight hook. So kind of similar to how we did update line numbers, we're going to create a highlight hook. But before we do that, let's get the root.html style sheet out of the way. So expand lib, expand Elixir gist web, components, layouts, and open up the root.html.hex file. And I will put this in the description so you can just copy and paste it. And underneath script, but above the closing tag for head, you're going to want to paste this style sheet. And it is just the URL to this version of Highlight.js with our theme at the end. So we're going to be using GitHub-dark. That's the theme we're using. And if you want to look at themes available, we can go to highlight.js.org, I think. Yeah, cool. Make this a little bigger. And what you can do here is you can go to demo, and you can go through all the different themes, and it's pretty cool. So you can put some code here. Let's try some JavaScript. Oh, let's get out of these bases. All right. So we're using GitHub Dark, pass in JavaScript. There we go. So you can go through all these themes and kind of pick what you like. I like GitHub Dark. That's what we're going to use in this project. And but if you want to change it, all you have to do is change the theme number in this link. So you can just change this piece right here to the name of the theme that you want. Now, what we need to do is we need to set up our JavaScript hook. So save the hex file here. We can close that. And we need to make another hook just like we did update line numbers. So I'm going to do it above. We're going to just say hooks dot, and then this is the name. We're going to call it highlight with a capital H equals, and then opening and closing curly braces. And let's put a semicolon at the end there so we don't forget later. There's a few things to know. Well, we're going to do the mount. We need mounted here. So when gist gets mounted, it gets called. So basically on load, we're ready to call this so we can do everything inside the mount function. Highlight.js requires us to have two tags. We have to have pre and code tags on either side of our HTML. So actually, let's jump over to our HTML and add those right now. So expand live and go to gistlive.html.heeks. Inside here, basically, let's say like right here, we're required to have a pre-tag. And then inside that pre-tag, we need a code tag as well, just like that. And then our code that we want syntax highlighting to goes inside there. So just like that. Fix spacing. And then one last thing, inside of the code tag, we have to add a class. And this is where we pass the language that we want the syntax highlighting to support. So for now, we'll do language-elixir. But at the end of the video, we're going to make this piece dynamic because basically language is always here. The prefix is always there, but we would change this to .html or to HTML, to text, to JavaScript, whatever language you want to support. But for now, we're going to just default to Elixir. And then, so anything inside this pre-code tag will get passed in to our highlight. We'll get syntax highlighting from Highlight.js. Okay, that was hard. I don't know why that was so hard to get out. But now that that's done, we can start writing our hook code. So over here, we want to grab our code block. And to do that, let's just create a variable called code block. And then this equals, we need it from this element. And we need to query selector. And then we're looking for inside of 2 double quotations, pre-code. So we're looking for both those code tags, okay? And everything inside those tags, semicolon, is the code that we want to add syntax highlighting to. And then it's really easy. We're just going to do a little if check here to make sure that code block is not nil. And then inside of this if block, all we have to do is call HL.js, because that's what we imported it as. And it's just, you just call highlight element. All right. And then we just pass in our code block. And then everything will be returned to us. And like magic, we're going to have our syntax highlighting, which I think is pretty nifty, right? All right, so save this. And one more thing we have to do before we can test this is we have to add our highlight hook to our HTML. And we've done this all before, but inside, we're going to do it inside this outer div where we have the background set to white. We're going to just add phx-hook equals, and then inside of double quotations, the name of our hook, which is highlight with a capital H. And then just save that. And now make sure that your database Docker container is running. Mine is. And then we just have to pull up our terminal and do mix space phx.server to get everything up and running. What doesn't it like here? ID. Oh, we need an ID to use a phx hook. And that's easy solve. So we're just going to say ID and we'll call this highlight. Save it. And now we should be able to compile everything and build and run our project. There we go. Cool. So now we're ready to test this and cross our fingers that it works right out of the gate, right? So go to localhost :4000 and we're still logged in. That's kind of nice. And I'm going to just find some Elixir code. Let's see. Let's grab our validate function from our create just live. So just like that. And then we're going to we'll just call this validate.ex. We're not doing anything with description yet, so I'm just going to leave it blank. And now when I hit create, it should route to our new page and we should have syntax highlighting. Boom. So that's pretty cool. Like, Highlight.js works pretty nice and easy, if you ask me. So that's really cool. And now what we want to do is make our language dynamic, because right now we hard coded. Let's go back to our project. We're hard coding language-elixir. Enjoying the video? Show some love with a like and hit subscribe to stay updated. To support me and keep the content free, click join for memberships or pick up a course at elixirmentor.com and get free access to my private community. Let's jump back in. And we want to be able to support multiple languages, at least a few more, the important ones, right? So to do this, we want to pass in the name that we created the gist with, because we are going to grab the extension off the end of that. That is going to be what we use to figure out what file type it is. So if it doesn't have an extension, we'll just default probably to Elixir, right? But if it does, so like say it's a .txt file, we will then do syntax highlighting for a text file or a JSON file, whatever that may be. But to do that, we need to add our own, basically our own attribute here that we can grab in JavaScript. So we're going to just call this data-name. And this needs to be up in our div tag. It can be right next to the hook. And we can just set this equal to, now to grab Elixir, to grab things out of our assigns inside of our div tag, we just need to do opening and closing curly braces, and then we can grab our gist.name, and that's all we need. So hit save, and then jump back over to our app.js file, and right above our code block, let's grab this. Now we can say let, and we'll call this name equals, and then this dot element, and then we want to get our attribute. And the attribute name, we just need in double quotations. It's just data-name. All right. And then put a semicolon at the end there. So now we have access to our file name, and we can write a function that takes the extension off the end of it and then returns our class parameter that we want in our HTML tag. Okay. So inside this if statement, let's add name here. So we want name and code block. We want to make sure both of those aren't nil. All right. And then we want to create a function, and we can create that function inside this hook. So just put a comma at the end of mounted. And then underneath here, let's call a function called get syntax type. And that will take the name. And then we're just going to do a switch statement, but we are going to do a switch statement for everything after the dot. So we want to grab the extension, right? So let's create a variable called extension. If I can spell extension equals, and then we're just going to say name, and then we can do split, and we can split it at the dot, and just go ahead and pop that off. And now extension will be just the remaining bit of our file name. And then we can do a switch statement right underneath. So switch, and then from the extension, and then opening and closing curly braces. And now this is where we'll handle all of our case statements. So we can just do case in double quotations, txt. And in that case, we would return text. So this is all going to be language-text, language-JSON, and you can find out all the things supported on highlight.js.org, okay? But it's as easy as that. So now we can say, let's support JSON, and this is JSON, so that's pretty easy. And then we'll do case. We want to support HTML. So that returns HTML. And then we also want to support Heeks. So Heeks will also return HTML. All right. And then, I don't know, should we support something gross? Should we support JavaScript? Since JavaScript is in this project, let's support JavaScript. And then so that will return JavaScript, and it's the full readable language. And then since this is an Elixir Gist clone, by default, if nothing matches, we're going to default to Elixir, okay? So default, and then we'll just return Elixir. And there we go. So now all we have to do now is call this function. We need to basically, if language dash anything exists, we want to replace it with our new language syntax setting, okay? All right, so inside our if block, we want to basically find and replace language dash that, it's followed by anything. So all the way up to white space. We want to replace any existing instance of that with an empty string. And to do that, we can actually say code block dot class name, camel case, class name equals, now we want to say code block dash class name, and then we want to say replace. So we're going to replace anything in our class name within our code block div. Starting, we're looking for language dash, okay? And then we're looking for everything that isn't white space until white space after that, okay? So that is a backslash capital S plus /G, and then comma, replace that with an empty string. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to look for all instances in class. So if language was in there multiple times, that's what the G does. We're looking for all instances of language dash, and then everything up into a white space, we're going to replace that with an empty string, okay? So we're actually removing right now, when this hook gets called, we'd be removing this completely from the class, okay? And then underneath it, we need to set our new syntax setting. So we want to say code block dash class name, class list, dot add. And then inside of parentheses, we need a backtick, and we want to say language as our prefix, dash, and then do a $, and then opening and closing curly braces. And now inside of this is where we can call our get syntax type function. So do this dot get syntax type, and then inside of parentheses, pass our name variable. And then this will return the string that gets tagged on the end of language, and then put a semicolon at the end of this line and hit save. So this should now dynamically update. So if we put JSON data in our code snippet and our name has .json, it should now do syntax highlighting for that, which I think is really cool. So let's go ahead and trying to think here where we have some JSON, or we can do some HTML or something, I suppose. Let's do some HTML. We'll copy and paste our app.html code. So let's go to our project, go back to our home page, and let's do our app.html.hex file. And I'm just copying and pasting from our project right there. And now when I hit create, it should do HTML syntax highlighting. And that is pretty cool. I think it's doing it. So there we go. I don't know what happened here. Oh, okay. But so syntax highlighting is now dynamic, which is really freaking cool. Let's do some JavaScript just for fun. I'm going to copy and paste our highlight hook that we just created. So copy, paste, and we're going to call this Highlight.js and hit create. And there we go, syntax highlighting for JavaScript. So we successfully added Highlight.js to our project using npm. We then got syntax highlighting to work and made it dynamic based on the extension used in the gist name. I think this is pretty sweet, and yeah. So as always, if you need help or want to check out the solutions, check out that GitHub link in the description below. Join my Discord server, Elixir Mentor, if you have questions or just want to hang out and chat. That link is also in the description. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready, full-stack, and REST API solutions, hit that subscribe button now. I'm Jacob Lutzow, your Elixir mentor. See you in the next video.